Along the way, he opened the pouch the store attendant had given him, and saw a valuable-looking gem among the gold coins. His employer had probably not given this to the store to pay for the drinks, so it would seem best to treat it as hush money. Bez did not have the keen senses of a ranger or a thief, but he had senses of his own, that had been honed after many battles. He deployed those senses fully and took a roundabout route back to his own inn to check if he was being followed. Part of the inn's first floor was a cafeteria, and his friends were drinking in a corner. Yo. He knew from a glance at the label of the wine bottle that this was better than the usual stuff. It was the best stuff that the inn had. Of course, it was nothing compared to the bar where Bez had just been drinking. Welcome back, looks like things ended uneventfully. You look happy, you smell of liquor, and you're back late. The man who said this was around 120 centimeters tall. He was not a child, but a proper adult. He belonged to the humanoid race known as hill dwarves. While they were relatives of the dwarves, they had an affinity for the ranger profession and keen senses of direction. After all, you'd have come back sooner if something had happened. The speaker was a man whose spear was leaning against the wall. He had the head of a serpent, and his entire body was covered in scales. He was a snakeman, a demi-human race. He paid up the amount he promised. That said, he didn't pay extra. Sounds like even if you did, you would have drunk it away. I don't touch alcohol, so don't take it out of the party funds. But you ate a whole pile of fresh meat, didn't you? You don't mind me taking that out of the party funds, do you? The person saying so was a humanoid make whose race was a relative of the orcs. His muscular body made him seem twice the size of Bez. While one could call his race relatives of the orcs, they were more like superior specimens of the same, much like the way hobgoblins and goblins were related. The weapon on his waist was over 2 meters long, known as Ndachi. He could skillfully employ it as a Ronin. In addition to those three, the two others who were not present made up Bez's companions. Right, let's appraise it. Bez, take out the gems. Bez handed the pouch with the gems to the hell dwarf. The hell dwarf upended its contents onto the table and began evaluating them by lamplight. He took a minute for each one before he was done. By that time, his friends had already finished counting the gold coins and informed him of the amount. Right. The sum's what we agreed on. The gems might sell for more or less depending on the buyer, but that's not our client's fault. The snakeman twisted his head at an angle that humans could not manage and looked at Bez. Even though he was used to looking at those eyes which betrayed no emotion, it still made Bez uncomfortable. Now then, why would he pay so much for such a simple job? Did you learn anything after a few drinks with him? That was why they had chosen to meet in that incredibly high-end establishment. Considering the job was just to check out a city even if it was infested with the undead, but only on the level of zombies, this was a ridiculously generous sum. That was what had bothered Bez about their client's true intentions. However, not at all. Bez shrugged. That was because he had concluded that it would be safer not to pry too deeply into this. Oi, isn't it possible that we might be visited by retrievers soon? Beats me. Retrievers here referred to assassins and the like. We did our job well. Don't you think he'd rather make use of us rather than kill us off? Well, another job would put me somewhat at ease. What a shame. I did my best to put on a show, but the client didn't have a new job for us right away. He might be talking to his boss. After verifying the earnest look in his friend's eyes, Bez began telling them about their conversation in the bar and his own postulations. In that case, I think your conclusion is on the mark, Bez. Or rather, I can't think of anything else. Yup. He must be from some country. Is looting the treasure of 3 cities just a dream. The hell dwarf agreed with the orc's words. Bez's mercenary band was a group of experts, and they were confident that they would not lose out to the troops in the region. But much like Bez, they did not want to spend their lives on the run. So what should we do next? We've taken a lot of jobs here. Resentment's starting to build up. That's true. Maybe we should head over to Soba. I heard the Tsar of the Eastern countries is recruiting talented mercenaries. Might be a good idea to head there. In any case, we should prepare to move out. After hearing his companions voice their approval, Bez nodded. Suzuki Satori walked a short distance after leaving the bar, and then took a turn into a small alley. After ensuring that there was nobody in there, he cast Perfect Unknowable. He waited there for almost a minute, but nobody entered that little alley. It would seem he could be sure that he was not being followed. According to his experiences, Suzuki Satori knew well that there were precious few entities in this world who were powerful enough to see through spells of this tier. Suzuki Satori cast Fly and Greater Teleportation in that order. His destination was a 0.1 kilometer above the city. The clamor of the night could not reach that high. It was a place lit only by the gentle light of the moon. Suzuki Satori deftly folded his legs in midair and produced a map from his inventory, which he placed on his legs. Now then, this place was converted to the undead as well. Which means, he took out a pen and marked the cities which the mercenaries had visited. Kino's eyes would have gone wide if she had seen this. The map was exquisitely drawn and depicted the countries near Kino's homeland. It had been made by spending a great deal of the gold coins stolen from Corpus of the Abyss. If the intelligence personnel of the neighboring countries had seen this, they would have gladly spent money like water to obtain it. During the 5 years since they had set off on their journey, Suzuki Satoru had spent a great deal of time conducting investigations, and he discovered that the zombification had affected a very large area. While he was not sure exactly when each zombification had taken place, analysis of the information he had collected suggested the time gap between each instance had not been very great. The question of who had done this and their aims remained unclear, but it looked like it was not targeted at Kino, and it was very unlikely that Corpus of the Abyss had done this. If Corpus of the Abyss had a magic caster who could trigger a phenomenon like this over such a wide area, then they would not have been picked off one by one so easily. The likelihood that this had not been accomplished through the personal power of the members of Corpus of the Abyss, but by some item obtained from somewhere was similarly very low. Therefore, it would probably best not to tell Kino that hunting Corpus of the Abyss had been done to procure funds, and to steal the research that those undead beings had spent so much time compiling. He had kept all these things from Kino because she was simply too soft-hearted. Nobody else mattered to Suzuki Satoru besides himself and Kino. He simply acted with his interests as a priority. However, she would not have thought about things so simply. Therefore, doing so was also to avoid burdening her with excess guilt. In that case, which place is the most suspicious? After analyzing the information I've collected, the zombification seems to be limited to this region. Suzuki Satoru's finger pointed to the safe cities, which had not been marked. Which means... Suzuki Satoru's line of sight shifted, and then stopped at a corner of the map. The zombification phenomenon radiated from a certain point in the mountain range there. There was a legend surrounding those mountains. There was a fountain of wisdom somewhere in the mountains, and soaking in it would grant one wisdom. But many trials stood in the way of getting there, and it was said that nobody could come back from it alive. However, that mountain range was also a lair for wyverns and other powerful monsters, so it was very likely that those monsters would make any venture in their one-way trip, even before one could throw one's life away in those trials. It might be fun to verify this legend if he had the time, but there was something he had to do before that. Suzuki Satoru quietly said the name of the highest peak in that mountain range. Cadinius, He had no proof that it was the source of the phenomenon. He had simply remembered the brightness Dragon Lord, who resided on the highest peak of the continents. After all, there was a very large margin of error when considering the scale of the map, even if he was looking for the center of a radiating spread. If it really was there, the source of the phenomenon was a magic item, and it had triggered the zombification during transportation, then there would truly be no hope. The difficulty of finding it would be like trying to find a pearl in the desert. And even if it had been caused by someone, they probably would have run far away and hidden by then. In that case, there was no way the sages of the nearby nations could not have thought of something that even Suzuki Satoru would have noticed. But it was still possible. Yes, it really was possible. It was possible that nobody had sent out investigation parties. Suzuki Satoru had used greater teleportation to travel between the surrounding countries, spent a great deal of resources, and even hired people to conduct investigation, despite the lack of immediate returns. If anyone else had done what Suzuki Satoru had, they would have been able to reach the same conclusion. However, there was probably nobody who had done so to date. Even if there were people who wanted to take action in order to verify their information, it would have taken them longer than Suzuki Satoru to obtain information of the same standard that he possessed. That would mean Suzuki Satoru was probably the closest to unraveling this mystery. In that case, he might be able to find something left behind there that might work as a clue. However, going there would also be very troublesome. That was because he could not teleport to a place he had never been to before. He could only teleport to a city he could reach and then go on foot from there. Naturally, that would waste a lot of time, and so he would have to explain various things to Kino. He had barely managed to bluff his way through until now, and Suzuki Satoru's head ached when he thought about it. Kino had not mentioned her homeland since 2 years ago. Before that, she had been searching for a way to cure the zombification and help her people. But ever since that several days before that, she had not brought it up again. After that, she seemed content to carry on in their adventures together. Had she really let go of it, or had she simply buried it deep in her psyche? Suzuki Satoru could not tell which was the case. Or perhaps Kino had hidden it very well, or perhaps Suzuki Satoru was very bad at reading the hearts of others. Digging too deep into the hearts of others was not good either, which was how they had made it this far. I guess asking would have been fine. Even so, I didn't do anything. Was it because I didn't want to feel the helplessness of not being able to ease the suffering of a fellow traveling companion? For Suzuki Satoru, the only people who had accompanied him on adventures for so long were the members of Ainz, and by sheer length of time, Kino had surpassed even them. Therefore he had chosen not to poke at the matter, in order to let his feelings remain in a comfortable place. I'm really useless, but what will I do from now on? Collecting this information had simply been a matter of interest on his part. At the same time, it was also to find a way to ease Kino's pain, even if just a little. However, after gathering so much information and pinpointing a suspicious location, he has started waffling instead. He did not know if there were any merits to doing this. Quite a few demerits came to mind, however. If there was someone there who had triggered this phenomenon, a wide-ranging event which had indiscriminately brought tragedy to people, then there was no way they could be normal. If he actually encountered that person, then surely battle would be unavoidable. Was there any gain at all in opposing someone who could affect an area which even Yggdrasil magic could not hope to reach? It was not as though the zombification would recur, and even if it happened again, it was very unlikely that it would affect Suzuki, Satoru and Kino. And if that change could even convert overlords and vampires into zombies, then it would be safest to avoid dangerous people like that. If it was merely due to the unusual functioning of an item, then recovering it might be a good idea. I definitely want to lay my hands on an unknown world-class item. However, if someone had deliberately done so, what would be the aim of triggering such a phenomenon? Perhaps he would be able to formulate a response if he knew the opposition's aim, but right now he simply did not know enough. Suzuki Satoru touched the world-class item in his belly. Which is more dangerous, leaving it alone or investigating it? If someone really was scheming in the shadows, then it would be a bad idea to give them time. If they were on the level of the brightness Dragon Lord and he sat back to watch them grow stronger, then all he could do was run and hide. It seems the Dragon Lords are hostile to Yggdrasil players. If someone like that keeps getting stronger, I wouldn't be able to handle them by myself, right? I came out even with the brightness Dragon Lord. No, it was only a draw because I ran away. Well, if that's his limit, I'll be able to beat him next time. He was not being a sore loser or being stubborn. Both hiding his trump cards and enduring a one-sided offensive from his opponent was all in preparation for the next battle. Suzuki Satoru had always done this when playing in Yggdrasil. Due to the role of victory going to the one who won 2 matches out of 3, losing the first battle was not a problem. That did not change, even in his first life-or-death struggle in this world. The advantage of this fighting style remained, even when fighting under extreme circumstances like not knowing if he could resurrect after death. The strategy for certain victory that his former friend had taught him had not changed, even now. No. It was precisely because he was battling under such a dire situation that he should place even more faith in his old friends. That said, Suzuki Satoru did not want to fight an enemy of that level again. It was best to avoid danger. The smart way of doing things was to only fight battles he was confident of winning and choosing to flee if he would lose. Suzuki Satoru looked at the world. Brilliant points of light remained, even as the world at night was cloaked in silence. Perhaps his old friends might have said, "I want to protect this beautiful world," or something like that. However, no such feeling overflowed in Suzuki Satoru's heart. However, "This really pisses me off," he muttered to himself. Indeed. Right now, Suzuki Satoru was well and truly pissed off.